In the last two classes, we learned what the cloud is and the service and deployment models that shape how you use it. Today, we come down to earth and A2112, quite literally, and A2121, and look at where the cloud physically lives. Because for all the talk of the cloud as something floating and abstract, it is in fact millions of very real computers sitting in very real buildings in specific places on the map. Amazon Web Services organizes all of that hardware into a simple, elegant structure of regions and availability zones. And understanding that structure is the foundation of everything you will ever design on the cloud. Get it right, and you can place any application so that it is fast for your users, legal for their data, and tough enough to survive a disaster. So let us map the cloud. Here is what we will understand today. First, what a region actually is. Second, why there are so many regions around the world. Third, what an availability zone is. Fourth, why availability zones exist and the resilience they give you. Fifth, edge locations and how they differ. And sixth, how to actually choose the right region for your application. Let us begin. Let us start at the top of the structure with the region. A region is simply a large geographic area where Amazon Web Services has built its infrastructure, an A212, a name place on the map like Northern Virginia in the United States, or Mumbai in India, or Frankfurt in Germany. When you launch a server on the cloud, you are always launching it inside one specific region. Inside that area sits a whole cluster of data centers, grouped together and run as a single Amazon Web Services location. So a region is not one building. It is a collection of facilities in one part of the world presented to you as one place you can deploy to. The important shift in thinking is this: the cloud is not nowhere, it is somewhere. Every application you run lives in a real physical location that you choose. So the takeaway: a region is a named geographic area, and A2125, a real place on the map where Amazon Web Services runs its data centers and where your application physically lives. Amazon Web Services runs dozens of regions across the globe, and it is worth understanding why it does not just build one giant one. There are 4 reasons, and each one will shape your design decisions. The first is latency and A212. Simply, speed. Data travels at a finite speed, so a server physically closer to your users responds faster. A user in India talking to a server in India feels instant. Talking to a server in America feels sluggish. So you put your application near the people who use it. The second is compliance. Many countries have laws that require their citizens' data to stay within the country's borders. A region inside that country lets you obey those laws, which a distant region simply cannot. The third is cost, and A212. Prices genuinely differ from one region to another, so the same server can be cheaper in one place than another. And the fourth is availability. Amazon Web Services rolls out new services region by region, so the newest features may not yet exist everywhere. So the takeaway: many regions exist so that you can place your application close to your users, obey local data laws, manage your cost, and reach the services you need. Now, let us zoom inside a single region, because a region is not one solid block and A212. It is deliberately divided. Each region is split into availability zones. An availability zone is one or more isolated data centers within that region, an A200. Think of it as one independent chunk of the region's total capacity standing on its own. And the keyword is isolated. Each availability zone has its own separate power supply, its own cooling, and its own networking, so that a problem in one and A212, a power failure, a fire, a flood, and A212 does not spread to the others. Yet they are not far apart. They are linked to each other by high-speed private fiber, so data moves between them in a fraction of a millisecond. That combination is the clever part: isolated enough to fail independently, but close enough to work together as if they were one. So the takeaway: an availability zone is an isolated data center cluster inside a region with its own power and network and AD85 too, and every region has at least 3 of them, kilometers apart. Let us put those two ideas together into one clear picture, because this relationship is the heart of the whole class. Picture one region as a large boundary drawn on the map. That is your chosen geographic area, and A200 fall, say, Mumbai. Now, inside that boundary, place 3 separate circles. Those are the availability zones and 80A2 to how 3 isolated data center clusters sitting in different parts of the city, each independent of the others. And between them, draw fast private links. Because although they are physically separate buildings with separate power, they are joined by low latency fiber so they can act as one system. That is a region, one area containing several isolated but connected zones. So the takeaway, one region contains several availability zones and A212 separate buildings with separate power, joined by fast private links and A212, and holding that picture in your head is the key to designing on the cloud. Now we reach the whole reason this structure exists and A212 fall, and it is the single most important idea in cloud design: high availability. Imagine your entire application runs in just one availability zone. Then one day, that data center suffers a real-world disaster, an A200 pole, a fire, a flood, a total power cut. Your single zone goes dark, and because everything you had was in it, your application goes completely offline. Everything stops. Now imagine instead that you spread your application across availability zones and 8200 running copies in Zone 1, Zone 2, and Zone 3. When that same disaster strikes Zone 1, Zones 2 and 3 are completely unaffected. They keep serving your users, and your application stays up. The failure becomes a non-event. This is why deploy across multiple availability zones is the first rule every cloud architect learns. It is how the cloud turns an inevitable hardware failure into something your users never even notice. So the takeaway, spread your application across multiple availability zones, and the single data center failing no longer takes you offline and A212 wall. That is how the cloud survives disasters. There is one more piece of the map worth knowing, and it sits even closer to your users than regions 2 and A200, the edge location. Edge locations are a large number of smaller sites and 82.4. There are hundreds of them, far more than there are regions and 82.4, scattered across cities all around the world. They are not full data centers running your servers. They serve a narrower, specialized purpose. That purpose is speed of delivery. An edge location caches a copy of your content. An A200 tool dual, your images, your videos, your web pages, and A200 tool dual, physically near the viewer. So when someone loads your site, the content comes from an edge location in their own city, rather than traveling all the way from your distant region. This is what powers a content delivery network. The mental model is simple. Your region is your home base, where the real work happens, and edge locations are a network of nearby delivery points that hand content to users quickly. So the takeaway, beyond regions sit hundreds of edge locations that cache your content close to your users, delivering it from the corner nearest them for a noticeably faster experience. So, with the whole map in view, how do you actually choose which region to deploy into? There is a clear 4-part test, and it is worth applying in this order. First, latency. Which region is physically closest to the bulk of your users? A faster experience is usually the biggest win. Second, compliance. Does the law governing your users' data allow it to live in that region? This one can be a hard requirement that overrides everything else. Third, cost. Among the regions that pass the first 2 tests, which is cheaper? The same infrastructure can carry a different price tag region to region. And fourth, services. Does that region actually offer every service your application needs, since the newest ones roll out unevenly? Notice that these can pull against each other and may act too full. The closest region might be pricier, or lack a service and may add to full. So choosing a region is a genuine engineering trade-off, not a default. So the takeaway, choose a region by 4 tests, roughly in this order: an A212, latency, compliance, cost, and the services it offers, and A212, balancing them for your particular application. Let us distill the whole class into the one rule that will serve you in every cloud design you ever do. First, choose the right region and AD2 valve, the one that is fast for your users and legal for their data. That single decision sets where in the world your application lives. Then, within that region, always spread your application across multiple availability zones. Never place everything in a single zone if you care about staying online, because that quietly rebuilds the exact single point of failure the cloud was designed to eliminate. Put those two together, and you have the golden rule of cloud placement, the one that quietly underpins every resilient system running today. So the takeaway, choose one right region for reach and legality, and always run across several availability zones for resilience and AD2 one-to-wall, one region for reach, many zones for resilience. Let us gather the whole class in one breath. A region is a geographic area where Amazon Web Services runs a cluster of data centers. Many regions exist for latency, compliance, cost, and service availability. An availability zone is an isolated data center cluster with its own power and network. Each region holds at least 3 zones, isolated but linked by fast fiber. Spread across zones so that one data center failing never takes you offline. And edge locations cache content close to users, while each user region by 4 tests. Next class, the core cloud services, one by one idea at a time. That is the map of the cloud and 80-100 to 80-100 regions across the world, availability zones within each one, and edge locations reaching out to your users. It is a simple structure, but everything you will ever build rests on it. Choose your region with care, spread across your zones without fail, and your applications will be fast where they need to be and standing when others fall. We will see you in the next class.